All right, everybody. We're ready to go full West Wing today.
Because we are diving deep into the world of diplomats.
Okay.
You've sent us some really interesting stuff from RoleCatcher.
They're all about navigating careers.
Right.
And it seems you're curious about what it really takes to represent your country.
On the global stage.
Uh,
And let me tell you,
It's not all cocktail parties and UN speeches.
it is not all glamorous, no.
Although I admit those do sound kind of fun.
Definitely more to it than meets the eye.
The RoleCatcher material really digs into the reality behind the image,
We're talking demanding schedules.
high-stakes decisions.
Mhm.
And for those just starting out,
Prepare to basically live on an airplane.
so no more home-cooked meals for a while then? Okay, that's a slight exaggeration.
But I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah.
It seems like the life of a diplomat is way more intense than most people realize.
It is.
What surprised me is a RoleCatcher saying even junior diplomats might find themselves.
Representing their nation at these international conferences. Yeah. Way earlier than you'd expect.
That's right.
Not just fetching coffee.
They're in the room where it happens.
It's true, the learning curve is steep.
And speaking of learning,
Okay.
the guide goes deep on the skills needed to succeed.
Okay.
Of course, there's negotiation, diplomacy, those are a given,
Yeah.
but it goes way beyond that.
Active listening is huge.
Okay.
Like understanding the nuances and what's not being said.
It's giving read it between the lines, but on a global scale.
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Because you might think that someone needs to be like super outspoken,
To be a good diplomat.
but really it's about listening
It is,
as much as you speak.
as much as speaking.
What else did RoleCatcher highlight?
Critical thinking is a big one.
Imagine you're a diplomat negotiating a trade deal,
Systems analysis helps you see how that deal might impact not just trade.
but also, say, environmental regulations in another country.
Okay.
It's about connecting the dots on a global level.
That's where it gets really interesting.
So not just a sharp mind, but a strategic one. Yes.
Thinking several steps ahead.
If someone is early in their career, just starting to build their CV,
Are these the kind of keywords they should be thinking about
absolutely.
if you're looking to break into diplomacy?
Highlighting those analytical and critical thinking skills is key.
Right.
But even beyond that,
The ability to analyze complex systems is becoming increasingly valuable in all sorts of fields.
it's like that saying,
Give a man a fish, he eats for a day.
teach a man to think systematically.
And he can probably negotiate a pretty sweet fishing treaty.
Exactly.
But in all seriousness.
It speaks to the value of those transferable skills
Okay, so we've established it takes a unique blend of skills.
and a whole lot of mental agility to thrive in this world.
But what does that actually look like in practice?
Thankfully, RoleCatcher breaks down the career path into 4 stages,
Okay,
almost like a mini audio documentary.
I like it.
We're talking entry level, junior diplomat, diplomat, and finally, the top of the mountain, senior diplomat.
Let's start with those fresh-faced newcomers, the entry-level folks.
Think of it as a diplomatic boot camp.
You're assisting senior diplomats,
Doing research
attending meetings.
and taking meticulous notes.
This is where you're learning the ropes,
Right.
understanding how diplomacy actually plays out in the real world,
Okay.
and of course, building your network within the diplomatic community.
It's not exactly glamorous.
But essential groundwork.
Yeah.
And if we're thinking about today's job market with AI,
Doing so much of the initial screening,
right,
what should someone at this stage be highlighting on their CV?
keywords are key here.
When you're just starting out,
Showcasing your research skills
your ability to analyze information,
and any experience you have with report writing.
those are going to be your bread and butter.
Remember, even if you're a pro at something,
If the AI doesn't see it on your resume,
it might as well not exist.
it's like learning a secret code.
But instead of cracking Enigma,
We're cracking the code to getting noticed by those algorithms. And RoleCatcher actually gives some great tips on tailoring your CV to specific roles.
okay,
For example, they suggest creating different versions of your resume.
that highlight different skill sets depending on the type of diplomatic work you're interested in.
So if someone's dreaming of negotiating peace treaties,
They should tweak their CV differently than someone who wants to work on.
say international trade agreements,
Exactly.
you want to make it crystal clear to both the human recruiters and those AI gatekeepers.
That your skills and experience align with the specific demands of the role.
That makes so much sense.
All right, so they've survived boot camp.
Mastered the art of the AI-friendly CV.
They're ready for more responsibility.
What's next on this diplomatic ladder?
Well, that's where things start to get really interesting.
We're moving on to the junior diplomat stage.
Buckle up. At the junior diplomat level, you're stepping out from behind the desk
Okay.
and onto the world stage.
Mm-hmm.
Remember those international conferences we talked about?
Yeah.
You might be representing your nation, assisting in negotiations, the whole shebang.
Whoa, talk about a trial by fire.
That's a lot of pressure for someone who just yesterday was probably perfecting their bullet points for the AI overlords.
It's a crash course in high-stakes diplomacy, for sure.
But this is where those negotiation and communication skills,
Really get put to the test.
right,
They're not just observing anymore.
they're actively shaping international agreements
I bet this is where that systems thinking,
we talked about
yes,
becomes absolutely crucial.
absolutely.
One wrong move could have ripple effects across the globe.
1 minute they could be working on a trade agreement. The next, they're navigating a diplomatic crisis.
They need to understand how their actions fit into the bigger picture of global relations.
And I imagine this is also where building relationships with officials
From other countries
yes,
and organizations.
becomes really key.
It does.
It's not just about what you know at this level.
It's also about who you know.
Exactly.
Junior diplomats are constantly networking, building trust.
And fostering those crucial lines of communication.
This is where that personal touch can make all the difference.
RoleCatcher actually gives a great example.
Oh.
They profile a junior diplomat.
Who's deeply involved in crafting environmental policy.
They're not just at the table.
They're actively shaping the conversation on a global scale.
That's incredible.
Okay, so
Huh?
imagine you're a junior diplomat.
You're killing it.
You've mastered the art of the diplomatic handshake.
What does the next step up the ladder look like?
Well, once you've proven yourself at the junior level,
You're on your way to becoming a full-fledged diplomat.
okay,
And this is where leadership skills
really come into play.
Okay.
Think of them as conductors of an orchestra.
Making sure all the different parts work together harmoniously.
So instead of a baton,
They're wielding a well-crafted diplomatic memo.
exactly,
They're leading their nation's representation.
within international organizations,
Negotiating complex agreements
and generally making sure their country's interests are front and center.
on the world stage.
No pressure, right?
Right.
And with that increased responsibility comes the need.
For even more specialized knowledge,
Right.
RoleCatcher's guide mentions that many diplomats at this stage
Have master's degrees
wow,
and specialized certifications.
in areas like advanced negotiation or international law.
So it's not just about on-the-job experience anymore.
You got to back it up with some serious academic credentials.
Precisely.
And remember those AI recruiters?
Yeah.
They're paying attention to those credentials, too.
All right.
Having the right qualifications listed on your CV.
Can be the difference between landing that dream diplomatic role.
And getting lost in the digital shuffle.
It's like a never-ending game of resume optimization.
But seriously, it makes sense.
The more specialized the role,
Right.
the more important it is to demonstrate you have that knowledge and those skills to match.
Okay, we've climbed pretty high up this diplomatic ladder.
What's it like at the very top? So we've reached the summit.
The Everest of the diplomatic world. The senior diplomat.
Yes.
These are the folks calling the shots, right?
Exactly.
Think of them as the architects of their nation's diplomatic strategy.
They've got decades of experience under their belts,
They've seen it all.
and they're brought in for the most delicate, high-stakes negotiations.
Okay.
We're talking about shaping international relations at the highest level.
Now, I am picturing a very tense scene.
In a wood-paneled room,
Maybe a fireplace crackling in the background.
you're not far off.
But it's not all dramatic showdowns.
Okay.
A lot of it comes down to judgment.
Being able to stay calm under pressure
All right.
and make decisions that could have global implications.
That takes a special kind of person.
It does.
Not just smart, but with nerves of steel.
And I'm guessing those AI recruiters would be bowing down to a CV this impressive.
You could say that.
But even at this level,
Okay.
RoleCatcher highlights something interesting.
What's that?
It's not just about individual achievements anymore.
It's about mentorship. Senior diplomats are expected to guide the next generation,
Share their wisdom.
make sure that institutional knowledge gets passed on.
So even at the top, it's about teamwork.
It is.
That's kind of heartwarming, actually.
After talking about all those high-pressure scenarios,
Like, even when you're negotiating treaties.
you still need a good mentor.
Absolutely.
Diplomacy at its core is about building and maintaining relationships.
Whether it's between nations or between colleagues.
That's a great takeaway.
You know, it's been fascinating to go this deep into the world of diplomacy with you.
It has been.
What started with a stack of RoleCatcher guides.
Turned into this whole journey.
From understanding the hidden demands of the job
Right.
to figuring out how to impress those AI recruiters,
All the way to witnessing the strategic brilliance.
of a senior diplomat.
That's quite a career path.
It really is.
It really makes you appreciate the complexity.
Of what goes on behind the scenes.
It does.
In international relations, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
But there's one thing that's been bugging me.
Okay.
RoleCatcher gives us all this practical advice.
The skills, the career path.
Right.
But what about the human element?
That's a great question.
And it's something RoleCatcher doesn't explicitly address.
Right.
What are those intangible qualities?
It makes someone truly exceptional in this field.
Is it empathy?
The ability to understand another culture's perspective.
Right.
Or maybe it's unwavering integrity,
Mm-hmm.
even when the stakes are incredibly high.
It makes you wonder, what would a guide...
To the heart of a diplomat look like?
I like that.
That's something for all of us to ponder.
That is...
And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive.
But like any good diplomatic mission...
We're leaving the door open for further exploration.
I like it.
Until next time.